I'm really good at sweeping in at the last moment and saving the day. Who does this? Are you really good at this? You, maybe somebody at the last minute, their lack of planning, right? And they come up to you and they go, oh my God, I just need this. And you're like, oh, sure, I don't think I need to sleep tonight. That's okay if I just right? I did this when I had my agency, my marketing agency, and I first started the first couple years. And people would rush in at the last minute and say, oh, Christina, that's right. We have an open house tomorrow or Monday. I know it's Friday night. We forgot to put out the marketing campaign. Can you put? And I'd be like, oh yeah, sure. No problem. Let me just help you. No problem. I'm going to do that for you. And I just say yes, yes, yes. And I would be serving myself up on other people's table and they'd just be taking little bites out of me. And then pretty soon I'd be burnt out. I would literally schedule 10 days a quarter to burn out. I would be like, okay, if I can just hang in there. All right, I know, you know what? I know I'm here and I'm flying there and I'm flying there. And now I've had this and this. I can get 2 hours of sleep on the plane and then I can take a quick nap over here. It just isn't sustainable, right? So one day, I had a colleague who I would work with, and I'd go to her house, grab my laptop, go to her house, unpack my computer, and we'd just work. We'd get down to it. We were two women running our own agencies. We were really excited about it. And everybody knew that when Christina comes, that's what we do. We sit down, we work. So one day, I pull up my backpack, I come into her house, I start unpacking everything, and she's like, hey, this is great. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna get to work. She says, why don't you come over here in the living room? And I was like, oh, you have a living room. I didn't know, right? Because we're always at the table working. I get down to it, 6, 7, 8 hours, we're in it, right? Mm-hmm. And she says, come on over to the living room. And I was like, okay, what do you mean? So I pack up my stuff and I bring it. She said, no, leave your stuff there, leave it there, just come. Okay, so I go into the living, have a seat. So I sit down and she's like, would you like some tea? I'm like, just bring it, sure, tea, bring it here. Okay, what are we doing? And we sit down and she sits next to me, my friend, now that she has my focused attention because it's very difficult to get when you're an overcommitter and you're a people pleaser and you're running around everywhere. And she has my focused attention and she says, now what are we gonna do about your hands? And I said, my hands, what do you mean? She said, look at your hands. And I was wearing braces on my hands because I would work and work and work through tears, still typing. And my trainer was like, oh, you have these exercises and you can do those. And I would do the exercises and then I'd go work for 10 hours. And he's like, that's not really the point. I don't think that's quite. And she said, what are we going to do about your hands? And I said, I'm an entrepreneur. You gotta be stronger than the pain, right? You just push through. And she said, okay, well, if you think your beautiful hands aren't important, let's go down to the Veterans Hospital. And you can talk to some veterans who don't have their hands, Christina, and tell them how hands aren't important and how you're just going to ruin your hands, but people who aren't even asking you to destroy your body. What are you doing? What are you doing? And so for me, that was the beginning of me learning how to say no. Because I was overcommitting all the time. And so this talk is for people who are overcommitters. This talk is for people who are people pleasers. This talk is for people who keep serving themselves up on other people's tables. And maybe you don't need a big wake-up call like me, right? Where I was going around, my friends had to open my water bottles for me because I literally didn't even have the hand strength to open up a plastic water bottle and crack. And that was for about 2 years. It was about 2 years that I did that. So you don't need a big wake-up call like that, and I hope you don't, right? But today we're going to talk about ways that we could say no. This is not my clicker, so I need to turn it upside down. This is my friend's far away. My name is Christina Aldan. I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer, I'm a brand strategy consultant based out of Las Vegas. I'm also an author. If you want to keep this conversation going, you can use #LuckyNo. Thanks so much to NDC conferences. I've spoken at a few of them. This is my first time in NDC London, and it's wonderful, so thank you. The objectives today, we're going to talk about the unapologetic no, why we say no. And at the very end, we're going to talk about all these different strategies that I used, tried and true, and I still use with my clients because I coach for emotional resilience and for career coaching. I've also been a mentor for over a decade. And these are exact strategies that I use. So the reasons why we resist: we don't want to miss a sale. I certainly did that when I first started my marketing agency. We want people to like us. Ooh, who's got that one? We think we have to take on every project, right? Especially if you're a junior, especially if you're starting. You just want to say yes, 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 especially in certain job markets, right? So it's hard. We want to help. Listen, I want to help my aunt with her quilt business, pop up her little, and I know she's been in there with her little Wix and even a WordPress thing. I could just pop it up in a couple days and do it. But listen, aunt, and your quilt business, that's probably just a hobby, right? That still takes time. That stuff still takes time. We have to think about that. Sometimes we're having fun, but guess what? Even the fun things take energy, and we forget about that sometimes. And we're afraid of being rude or unprofessional. This can also be a cultural thing within the business culture, or it can be, something else. You come from a different part of the country or a different country entirely. We also want to avoid conflict. This is a big one for me. Who does this? You don't want to avoid, I'm not going to make waves. I'll just go with the flow, right? And then you start to justify it. Oh, that's all right. I'm helping, and it feels so good to help and give back. It's cultural. We talked about that a little bit. And at the end of the day, we just want to avoid being a jerk. I sit in with Java champions because, I speak at conferences all over the world, even though I'm a soft skills woman, but I'm an honorary Java champion. I sit in with Java champions, and I was telling them, hey, listen, I'm doing my talk, learning to say no without being a jerk. And one of them raised their hand and they said, excuse me, Christina, what's wrong with being a jerk? I was like, this talk's not for you. You're good. You're good. You got it. So, the thing about when we resist saying no, at the end of the day, it's really just because of some sort of fear, right? We're talking about some sort of fear, and it presents itself in a lot of different ways. And then if we can change that, we're going to get better results in our life. We have a fear of abandonment. Sometimes we can't even help this because it's deep-seated in way far back, things that have happened, right? We might have fears of missing out. This one is so big, we have an acronym for it, FOMO. Listen, I get it. I live in Las Vegas. 365 days a year, 7 days a week, there is always a party going on. So I understand FOMO. Fear of not good enough, that's another thing. Sometimes you want it to be perfect, maybe. Yeah, You might have it so that you can't even make a move because you want it to be perfect. The fear of not belonging and the fear of change. I have a friend who struggles with change, even if we change restaurants, right? Even that pivot right there is too much for them because their brain breaks. And so we've got to plan in advance and give advanced options. There's also the fear of judgment, especially how social media is these days. People want to be careful about what they're putting out there, right? But here's the thing, these fears, they hold us back. And they really prevent us from getting what we want out of life, from living our best life, and for creating all of the opportunities, that we want in our careers. So it's a really important skill. It's an important skill because we tend to push back our own needs when we're serving others, when we're serving the company. And I'm not talking about responsibilities here. Remember, I'm talking about when you overcommit, when you find yourself people-pleasing, when you're running yourself ragged and you're just giving too much energy. And those boundaries that we set, they manage expectations of other people, and it helps us plan our own day and our own time, right? What about the sleeping time? What about the relaxing time? What about the going to the dentist time and the sitting around and staring at the wall? My Jay, he always says at Arana, he always says sometimes working looks like staring out the window because it does. You have to have that relaxed mind to be able to be in the space of creative problem solving. It's also an important skill because we got to focus. We are much more efficient when we focus on one thing instead of multitasking all over the place. And it helps us stay connected to our why. When we stay connected to our why, we're much more successful during the times that maybe we don't want to persevere, right? We can lean into that why. It's also an important skill because it manages expectations. Have you heard of good fences make good neighbors? Who's heard that before? We have a saying, we say, good fences make good neighbors, because if your horses aren't on my lawn, then guess what? We're doing okay. It's just gonna, nice little boundary sets my expectations. You keep your horses over there, I'll keep my horses over here. Or your dog, as the case may be, if you're Taylor Swift's neighbor. It's also important because our quality of work will fail. You get more mistakes if you're just go. I had a project where it was a 9-month project, and I would sit in my office. They gave me an office, and I was racing around all the time, and it just wasn't the company culture. So if somebody would come in my office and they go, "Hey, Christina," I'd be like, "Oh yeah, let's walk and talk, let's go." And then, "Hey, slow down." Or I'd burst out of my office and then, "Oh, sorry." They'd be like, "Christina, calm down." And so when you're just going all the time, it's too much. The other thing that happens is we start to fall down all these little dominoes, our home, our family, our love, all of these things, and we end up getting way over our heads. We say yes all the time, we get sick. We say yes all the time, we get overwhelmed. Who's felt like this lately? You feel like maybe you haven't accomplished a thing and you're just rushing and bulldozing everybody. When we say yes all the time, we make more mistakes. And so I know that there is this thing where people say, "Hey, at least just get it out. You don't want to be stuck in analysis paralysis." That's one thing. I get that. But if you're just rushing, trying to get things out, you're probably only putting out work that's maybe 75% of your best effort? Is that really the level you want to function at, right? The other thing is we flake at the last minute, and I used to do this. I would make plans for my friends and say, "Oh, no, sorry, I got to cancel. I can't go tonight because I got this deadline." But we got tickets, but wait a minute. And I had a coach, and I was saying, "No, I make time for everyone. I do things, and I still make time for play." She's like, "You're running in circles, and you just canceled your plans tonight, so you're the flaker friend." And I was like, "Oh, I am not the flaker friend." She's like, "Evidence to the contrary. Like, you're literally the flaker friend." So I was just end up disappointing my friends. And the last thing is that I ended up being resentful. Who has done this before? Where you say, "Oh, yes, let's have dinner. Come on over, everybody." And you make the money to buy the pizza, and you order the pizza, and you have fun, and it's the party, and everybody says, "Can we help you clean up?" And you say, No, I got it. "Oh, don't worry about that." And then everybody leaves, and they have fun, and you're there scrubbing the dishes, resented, like, nobody's helping me clean up, and nobody... I'm like, well, wait a minute. You literally told everybody to leave, that it was fine because, I don't want to be a bother. I don't want to have conflict. And so, those are the types of situations that, while they're not big blowouts, little by little, you get burnt out, you get grumpy, you're just not the person that you want to be, and you're not getting the results that you want. So here are the strategies that I've used, and I still use regularly. So you can set some boundaries and enforce the boundaries in a way that doesn't make you feel like a jerk. Now, you might get to the point later where you're like, "Hey, Christina, what's wrong with being a jerk?" That's great. That's awesome. But for everybody, from here to here, they need a little bit of stepping stones. So I'm going to use some stepping stones today, okay? And then at the end, we're going to talk about some phrases and responses, and then also some ways to hack your brain as well that I've used, which are really cool. So the first one is to block time and honor it. I used to write it in. I used to block time. I was really good at blocking time until somebody would call me and say, "Hey, Christina, I need this thing." And I go, "Oh yeah, no problem. I don't need to do yoga. No problem. Just write myself out." It's a decision. And so you have to decide. I remember being at a conference, because conferences are super fun, right? And we come to the conference and we go all day, we're ahead, and then we're out at night, and then conference all during the day. And I remember we were out at a conference with one of my speaker friends in the speaker room late at night, and it was like 9 p.m. 9 p.m., we're just getting ready. Like, dinner's over, let's go out. 9 p.m., and he looked at me and he said, I prioritize sleep. You what? He said, no, I prioritize sleep. I was like, dude, I haven't seen you in like 6 months. Come on, we're here. He's like, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm talking. I prioritize sleep. And he just turned around and went to sleep. And I was like, oh, well, okay, bye. Like, how does one do that? And that's exactly how he did it. He just decided. And that's kind of what we need to do here. We need to block time and honor it and say, look, I've decided. I'm tired of burnout. I'm tired of being sick. I'm tired of people opening my water bottles for me, right? Next, am I feeling obligated? This is such an important question, because lots of times you have friends that say, oh, but come on. Oh, but I got tickets. Oh, but they're in town. Remember, I live in Vegas. Somebody always has tickets. Somebody always has free tickets to somewhere. No. And so am I feeling obligated? If you are, then that's a pretty good indication that you should probably say no. Maybe there's a small change that you can make, right? What would it take to make this an emphatic yes? Think about that. Think about that for your job negotiations. This is the biggest pointer that I give all of my mentees and any of my coaching clients in transition, anybody right now looking for jobs. What would it take to make this an emphatic yes? Yeah, that doesn't work, but if you could help me with moving expenses, yeah, that doesn't work, but if I could have a team, this is really what it take to make it an emphatic yes. You'd be surprised if you just tell people what it would take. They would be happy to deliver it to you. Lots of times people just don't know what to give you. So if you're specific about what you want, you'll get it. It's really just the matter of worrying about the conflict and worrying about asking. But we're going to get into that a little bit more. Next is to practice and gamify it. I took like 3 months. I like to say 3 months, but it was really 6 months because I'm stubborn. And I took 6 months and I practiced with friends and I gamified it. I went on Facebook and I said, quick, somebody ask me a yes or no question. And I would end up coming up with these weird answers like, I don't not want to go see the concert with you because I do love you, and I was still trying to say no. It was really fun. But because it was like I brought other people into it, it was more fun. And when I'd run into somebody, they'd ask me a question to test me and be like, hey, Christina. I'm like, no. Yeah, good job. Let's, and they'd be practicing. And you gamify it. The last thing, to decide. Like I said earlier, just have to decide. If you're going to block time, decide to honor it. And really make an effort to say, listen, from now on, I'm tired of being other people get promotions. I'm tired of always being the one on Friday night while everybody else is gone at the office. I'm tired of being the only person that takes care of my parents or whatever it is. We all have these things. So if we can learn to enforce our boundaries better, it makes your life incredibly less stressful. So here's some ways that you can hack your brain. So I'm the emotional resilience woman. I've been in emotional intelligence and a student of emotional intelligence for a long, long time. I have a neurodiverse brain, and I've gone through thousands of hours of coaching and therapy and highly specialized neuroscience. I think my trainer's neuroscience-based, and brains are really exciting to me. So some of the things that I use are ways to trick my brain and ways to train my brain. One thing you can do is change your password to change your mind. And this is fun because I was just at a conference last fall and somebody came up to me and said, hey, I took your workshop 5 years ago and I still have my team change their passwords and do that. So what I did is at the time I was using like Twitter a whole lot and I was logging in a whole bunch of times a day to check my Twitter. So what I'd do is I'd log out of Twitter every single time. So 5, 6, 7, 10 times a day, when I'd log into Twitter, I'd log in, I'd change my password to no way, Jose, or it'd be like saying no comes easily to me. And every single time that I typed it in, it would just, and when my brain got too familiar with it, I would change up the password again and have it something about no. So think about that and change up your password. And the more that you refresh it over and over again, it's almost like it deepens the groove to that neural pathway, right? So so when we think about emotional intelligence, we have this quality called neuroplasticity. Who's heard of neuroplasticity before? Almost everybody, which is super cool. Like 10 years ago, nobody would raise their hand. So neuroplasticity is really cool. What it says is that we can learn new things. We can create new neural pathways. As we stimulate those neural pathways, when the stimulus comes in, those neural pathways are activated. We get more protein synthesis around the bundles and the connections. We get myelinated sheaths that are thicker and stronger. And the neural pathways that are no longer used, they actually dissolve away because our brain is always optimizing for efficiency. So we can actually train our brain. We can actually create new neural pathways. We can actually teach an old dog new tricks. We didn't think we could do that before. So change your mind, change your password. You could also shift your perspective. You can shift your perspective from first, second, third person point of view. And we have plenty of time, so we're going to do this exercise all together. So I'd like everybody to please close your eyes. Put your feet on the floor. We are going to do a little exercise to shift our perspective. And this exercise is going to help in not just your professional, but also in your personal life. So just close your eyes and everybody take a deep breath together. I want you to sit in your chair and just feel what it's like to be you from first person point of view. You can see me up here. I'm moving. I'm waving my arms around because I like to flap around a lot, and I'm really excited to be at NDC London. You can feel the temperature in the room. You can hear me. Just sit what it feels like for your experience from the first person point of view. And then I want everybody to take a deep breath. And let's take one more deep breath, and when we do it, I want you to exhale and think about what it's like to be me. Yeah, I see you smiling. And so I'm up on stage. Your eyes are closed. Close your eyes back there. I see you. You see, I'm excited. I'm waving my arms around. I'm here at NDC London. I can see everybody closing their eyes, all of your name tags. You're beautiful. It's really great, right? And you can imagine what it's like to be me. Second person point of view as I look around the room at everybody in the room. We're going to take another deep breath together. And on the second breath, I want you to zoom out of the room as if you were watching it on TV. And this right here is the magic, people. I want everyone to think about the TV as you're watching us, our interaction. I'm interacting with you. The audience is interacting with me back. We're giving each other feedback here in the room. I'm talking to you. And you can imagine third person perspective, the dynamics, the interactions, how we are communicating with each other in this moment. And maybe you could change the channel. You're not going to do that. Maybe your TV is like a flat screen, super sexy. I don't know. Mine's like the old-timey one with the dials. But if you think about how we're interacting back and forth, we are communicating and we're creating this relationship together. And I want everybody to just take another deep breath and exhale, and you can open your eyes. So who could see that, our situation from first person point of view, right? You can see it from your own perspective. Who could see it from my perspective? Could you imagine what it was like to be me standing up here? Oh yeah, you could imagine these kitten hills. That's cool. That's cool. You imagine what it's like to be me. Awesome. And then who could see it from the TV? You zoomed out, third person perspective. It was pretty cool, right? It shifts your perspective. And it's really easy when we're all here in a room and we're talking and we're learning and we're here to learn. It's so much harder when you got a jerk on the other side of the table. It's so much harder when, your teenage kid is like, hey, I want to borrow the car keys, and you're not going to let him borrow the car, and there's conflict, right? But you can pause and you think about, what is it like for them in their shoes? And then you can zoom out as if you're watching it on TV. And you can watch yourself standing over your kid. And you can see your kid going, oh, but, all my friends are going to be there. It's the biggest night of the week. I'm going to be such a dork if I can't go, right? And so if you can shift your perspective, you really can start getting more empathy, but not only empathy that is, I'm not talking about like touchy-feely empathy. I'm talking about understanding where the other person is coming from so you can collaborate on a solution. If this is your position and this is my position, somewhere in the middle, we're gonna meet. I do talk about how to have a difficult conversation, and that's kind of where that is. There's some steps in there. But shifting your perspective is an excellent skill to have if you want to learn how to create boundaries better. And backwards on the clicker. The other thing I want to suggest is neurolinguistic programming. Has anybody heard of that? Neurolinguistic programming, I recommend Dr. Heidi Heron. She's excellent, gives a lot of free stuff on the internet. Self-hypnosis is another one. There was a time in my life for 3 years, I listened to self-hypnosis or NLP almost every single day to rewire my brain, and it helped tremendously in positivity, in just learning how to manage my emotions. Audiobooks are great, especially even when you're sleeping as well. You can get it into that subconscious mind. The other one is a tapping solutions app, which is also free, and it helps you shift your perspective, helps you bring down anxiety levels, and it will also help you with any kind of things that maybe you're nervous about flying or habits or things like that. These are all proven, tried and true, evidence-based tips and techniques, and they're things that I've used with my coaching clients and my mentees for years. So I'm going to keep doing that. So just enjoy that. So at the end of the day, practice makes perfect. So you could take a talk and I can teach you my things, but unless you're actually practicing it, you almost got to do like a self-directed study. And that's kind of what I did for 6 months. That's kind of what I did. And so what I did was I read something every single day about boundaries or how to say no. Even if it's a 300-word blog post, every day I made sure I was going to read it. My Facebook tribe, I told people, hey, come ask me a yes or no question. That was fun. Listen to a lot of audio, reminders, watching videos, putting pen to paper. We teach best what we need to learn. Who's heard that before? We teach best what we need to learn. If you really, really want to learn how to say no, I highly suggest you write a keynote about it and deliver it on continents all over the planet, and you get really, really great at learning how to say no. The other thing is to role play, and you can have certain scenarios in improving your career skills. My friend Leslie and I, we do a monthly improvisation workshop that's online where we practice these types of things and we role play. It was an engineering lead for 20 years, and she has taken real life scenarios out of that. And we teach people, what do you do if your boss promotes somebody else over you and they're trying to, shoot you out with there's all these different scenarios that she's done. And we mock up and we role play all the time to practice. I know that a lot of times companies will bring people in to do training, right? Isn't it fun to do personal development training with the people who are actually making you crazy and have zero personal development skills? Isn't that great? It's not fun at all. So it's way more fun if you can go to a conference or if you can jump online with people who are at different companies and you can all commiserate about the dysfunction at your companies. So let's talk about, these are exact phrases. You don't have to take pictures. I'm going to give you an opportunity at the end to have my entire slide deck. You can just download it. So these are the exact phrases that I have learned, that I teach, that I still use with all of my mentees and my coaching clients. So this one is really, really good. Thanks so much for thinking of me. Unfortunately, I have another commitment at a time. I'm copying Jane Doe. She could do it, right? If you can pass it off to someone else, this helps twofold because it also helps me with my people pleaser thing because now I'm like, hey, Michelle, why don't you go over here? Michelle's like, oh, Christina, that's so cool. I've always wanted to speak there and do that. I'm like, yeah, cool, you do it, right? And so now I'm helping her and I'm helping me, right? Make sure you talk to Jane Doe first before you, yeah. This is a really good one. I'm not the best person to help out with this. There's probably someone more appropriate to ask. This is when you really want to say, are you effing kidding me? Like, what do you think? Like, I don't even write that. Like, what do you, right? Instead, you could just say, I'm really not the best person. It's a much more PC way to say that. If it were any other day, I would do it. Unfortunately, I have a commitment, right? So this was probably one of the first ones that I used because in the beginning I had so many commitments. I had so many. So this was one that I used a lot. And I would say, if it was any other day, I would do it. But then I got sick and tired of saying that. So then I started going, oh, I'm going to miss that meeting again. I need to make space for it. I really want to go to that meeting. And I started setting boundaries to make space for the things that I love. I really want to go to that yoga class. I'm going to set space for the things that I love because I got tired of saying this over and over again. Just doesn't work for my calendar. Talk to my calendar. I don't know what to tell you. Simple, right? Yeah, I like that one. This doesn't meet my needs now, but I will keep you in mind for future reference. I use this one on LinkedIn. I got this one just ready to go on LinkedIn, copy paste. I got a LinkedIn thing right in Evernote. It's just, oh yeah, thanks. No, Unfortunately, it looks like it won't work for me. I do this sometimes on the second pass. So somebody will ask me something and I know I'm gonna say no, right? I know I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say, I'm not sure, let me check. Is that what you do too? Oh, let me check, and then I'm just not going to get back to you, and then maybe you'll just forget. And right? It's one of those. So this, I would just go, unfortunately, looks like it won't work for me. It's a little strong. I know. If you're not used to saying no. That darn calendar again. Man. I don't know what to do about that calendar. It's just so strict, right? So if you blame the calendar, that's great. But you don't want to do this if you don't intend on the next month following up. That's important. People would much prefer that you are authentic. I just don't feel like I could give you my full time and attention on this. Who's got that team lead? So I do this. Oh, I just don't feel like I could give you my full time. I mean, I could do it, but it's going to suck, right? So they don't want it to suck. Let me find somebody else. Or they do want it to suck, and they'll say, here you go. And then you have permission to deliver at 70%. Huh? How about that? So I just don't feel like I could give you. It's important to communicate it, though. It's important to communicate to them how you got a little bit on your plate. I had somebody, I was in Greece, and she said, oh, my boss, he says, though, it's okay for me to just keep reminding him I'm like, oh, so you're his reminder app? I don't understand what's happening here. That it's your responsibility to go, oh, this is too much or this is, and I gave her just a simple tool. I'm really big on back pocket phrases. Anybody who ever's worked for me, you know what I mean by back pocket phrases. Something that you practice when those emotions are high, and you just whip it out of your back pocket and deliver it, and then you can walk away and kind of deal with your emotions till later. And so, if you can say something like, what would you like me to reprioritize then for this? Or you could say, something, I know it's Friday at 7 p.m. and everybody else has left and you just asked me to stay over the weekend to work. But, how should I reprioritize this? What? Reprioritize what? Well, this came across my desk earlier, and we know who put it across my desk. But we'll just say, this came across my desk earlier, and it was asked that I do this. Now you want me to do this instead? Is that right? What's the priority? Lots of times when that happens on a Friday afternoon or a Friday evening, it's because the boss, the manager, the lead, is just trying to check off their checklist and trying to delegate, right? Lots of times they don't even really realize what they're asking. So if you just kind of pause and go, what would you like me to reprioritize? In her case, it forced her team lead then to go, what? Huh? Oh, yeah, because you just gave me this, and this. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, well, let's do this first, that first, that first. And it changed her environment, her working environment tremendously, because before that, she was just trying to, I'll do it. And I'll do it whenever, always, all weekends, all night, all day, fine. It's not healthy, and it certainly isn't sustainable. Unless you want your friends to open your water bottles for you. Thanks for asking me, but I'm already committed to something that day. That's kind of nice and upbeat and pleasant, right? Thanks for asking. I promised my business partner I wouldn't take on any more projects, that business partner. I did this, I ran I was co-managing director for Girls in Tech Las Vegas for almost 4 years. And it was in my heydays of saying yes. And my co-managing director happens to be a project manager. Has anybody ever met a project manager before? You have no problem saying no, right? No problem saying no. And so we like to do different events and different community events. And then finally, 1 month, I think we had scheduled like 5 or 6 different community events for our nonprofit, for our volunteer thing, right? And she looked at me and she was like, what are you doing? What did you agree to now? Like, we can't go to that booth. We can't. And so from now on, Christina, run it by me. And if I say, so then everybody started saying, hey, Christina, come do this, come do that. And I would say, you know what, my co-managing director, I just don't think, let me ask her, but I don't think so. And it really helped me be able to say no. It was almost like, remember, I'm thinking about stepping stones to saying no. It's not that you always have to stay in this world, but it gets easier and easier and easier the more you do it. So that's what I used. And eventually I did get to the point where I would say, no, doesn't work, not gonna happen. I can't do that, but let me tell you what I can commit to. This is a good one for partnerships when we want to collaborate and there's no often clear accountability, right? And so if I can see that when people invite me to a board or they invite me to a project, I go, I can't do that, but let me tell you what I can commit to, and I think you'll be happy with the results. This is going to be a reasonable amount of work for me. This is what you can expect from me. And at the end of the day, if you've tried all of these and you've told people no, and you've tried to let them know, but I don't think this is going to work, and they push, and they still are trying to get you to do stuff, you're just dealing with a jerk. You have my full permission to just bounce. Leave that situation, because every now and then you're gonna run into a real actual jerk. Most of the time I've found, though, that the conflict or the worry or the abandonment or the fear of missing out is mostly right up here. And if you just find a way to communicate that with the other person, the more and more you do it, you're gonna be surprised at how often people say, no problem. Oh yeah, that can wait till Monday. Oh, don't worry about it, I'll just find somebody else. Gasp. You mean somebody else? Yeah, okay, all right, somebody else. Can you allow somebody else to do that? Or does it have to be you? One of my besties, she came up to me and she said, oh, well, that's great. I said, oh, I got to do this and that. And she said, is it okay if somebody else does it? And I said, but they wouldn't do it right. She said, does it have to be right? Can it maybe just be like 90% right? And that way you can go home and sleep? I think that was a really good lesson I have some really great friends, right? And that was a really good lesson for me, because that perfection and that having to be the person, really, I don't need it. I don't need to control, because then actually I'm being the jerk. I'm being the control freak. I'm being the flaker friend, right? And I'm being the thing that I'm trying to avoid so hard. We become it. I want to give you a few words of caution here. And first, I promised you a copy of my slide deck. So let's just do that. If you want, you can here's a QR code here. You can just type in lucky no. And I'll give you a few moments. It'll ask you some questions, and then you can download it. Ooh, I've got a website too. I didn't put it in this deck. I'll share that with you. Cool. So, a word of caution. I'm going to keep going backwards. First of all is honesty. People would much prefer you to be authentic and honest with them than nice and avoidant, right? So if you're really, really serious about please keep me in mind for next time, then okay, say it. Or if you say maybe later, then only say it if you are serious about it. The next thing is avoid the reluctant yes. Sometimes while I was doing this in that 6 months, I was still saying, yeah, I could do that, right? If you're in a reluctant yes, if I suppose I could. If you're in a reluctant yes, then you're going to end up resenting it later. So it's important then to use that tool that we talked about earlier, the career negotiation one, this is what it would take to make it an emphatic yes. This is what it would take to make it a yes for me. Can we do this? Is it possible that this? And you could start negotiating. And I know that people pleasers don't like to negotiate, but you could start negotiating it in that way, and it gives you a much more empowered position. And instead of walking into the room and being a little more uncertain, you walk into the room and you're a little more confident, right? And the last thing that I want to remind you, at the end of the day, no is a complete sentence, right? So using these techniques, these strategies, it's helped me, it's helped my mentees, it's helped my coaching clients, and it removes frustration. It helps me sleep better at night, and I don't suffer from burnout anymore. So if we look deeper into the why that we're doing something and the motivation, then it'll help us create those healthy boundaries and get better results in our work, in our communication, in our personal relationships as well. And you don't have to be a jerk about it. Thank you very much. If you like this topic, if you like emotional intelligence, I did write this book about mastering resilience, and it talks more about ways to set boundaries. You can get it on Amazon. It's on Kindle as well. And if you're interested in any stickers or anything up here? Does anybody have any questions? I have lots of, usually for this talk, people want specific circumstances about how do you say no to somebody. So I like to leave space at the end for questions. So if anybody has specific things you want to talk about, just let me know. Does anybody have a question or a circumstance about saying no? Or does anybody have a really hard time saying no, that they've gotten into trouble they want to share? Yes?
I was going to ask if you have any tips for if there's people who you work around it and you do say no to them, but maybe they don't necessarily respect it or understand it.
Yeah.
So, for example, in my workplace, we'll get asked to commit to a bunch of work and basically just say, that's not feasible in the next 3 weeks. And quite often we'll just get, well, we've got to try anyway. So then you end up spending the next 3 weeks going, why am I even bothering? I know I'm going to fail at this. But you put the boundaries down and they just kind of walk all over it.
You know what? In that case, it's different with work when they have these deadlines, responsibilities, and they say that and you've communicated it. I tell people to document it. When they tell me that, I email them back and I go, thanks for chatting today about the thing. This is what we said. I said this is whatever, and I don't think we could do it, but I appreciate you believing in me and you see it? I appreciate you believing me and your support. We're going to do the best we can. And 3 weeks ends and it's not ready, and you go, oh, let's look at my email. And then HR calls you down and they go, hey, you haven't delivered and you haven't done this and you go, let's just take a look at that. I got some emails here. On this date, it looks like this. And I tell people to create a spreadsheet of communications so that you can reference them and you have them. Essentially, you're building a case. Because then, if you have that, it's a good tool to inform people, hey, maybe we have some communication things, or maybe there's a different way. Some tools might become available. Some DevOps stuff, if you talk to Paul, right, might become available in the process that you can tweak. Now, instead of being, I'm so beaten and I'm so upset, now you're proactive. Now you have some documentation. Now you have some ideas and some communication tools and some metrics. Look, we tried this 7 times on the last 7 projects and it didn't work. Maybe we should switch it up a little. You see what I'm saying? Yep. Another thing people ask is people who are nosy and disrespect your boundaries and you don't want to talk about personal stuff. A big way to help that and put the kibosh on that is to ask them why. Why is that important to you? People who ask rude questions and push boundaries or personal information, why is that important to you? But I don't understand, how does that affect you? They don't like that. And they go, because I want to know. Why? Because I'm curious. Why? Because of this. Why? Well, I've always been a curious person. Why? Well, because my this and that. Oh, I see. Your whole identity is tied up with shifting people and making them uncomfortable. Have you always been that way? No. Want to go talk about it? Let's go grab some coffee. So those are the types of things that's how I handle it. Does anybody else have a question? We have some time. Yeah.
You gave some advice around, do I really need to do the work if somebody else does it and they only do 90%, 80%, right? I've been in situations where when I've done that, if they hadn't done it properly, it rebounded straight to me. And then I'd have to not only do the work, but I'd also have to fix what they'd broken in the first place.
Yes.
I feel like I'm probably not the only one.
Yes.
How do you approach that? Because it's a lose-lose situation, right? You take it on or you don't take it on, you still end up doing the work.
Yes, and so again, it's a work responsibility thing that's really hard when the team leads don't see it, when the sales team has oversold and they're out playing golf, when the project manager has said, no, this is what we're going to, or they've let scope creep happen and you don't have control over it. Again, the things that we got to do for those are document. This is what happened. This is how the last 5 jobs that we did, this happened. So you can see the patterns and bring the patterns to them to make the business case for the money that you're losing as a result. Does that make sense?
I guess in my case, I always reluctant with the documentation approach because that ruins the relationship with the person that is in charge of my promotions.
Right.
So that always feels like a lose-lose as well. Like, yeah, I have my back now with HR, but I'm also...
Oh, I don't see it as a have my back from HR. And I think maybe that's the difference. Your angle is have my back from the HR. HR is there, first of all, to protect the company, not have your back. But secondly, it's more of a, I've been documenting how I work. I want to be more efficient. I've been documenting how my stuff is and my time, and I've noticed a pattern. And I've noticed a pattern in my work. Are other people experiencing this? This is what happened. How can we change this? It's a conversation and it takes time. And to change a culture and to change something where you're working and you're ingrained like that, it can take like 3 to 5 years. Like it could take a long time. I'm talking about, consistent effort where you're informing people. It's not a have my back from HR. It's a consistent, this is what's happening. This is what I need to improve. These are the gaps in my career. I want this skill and this isn't happening. Is it that I don't have the skill, or is it our culture is crippling us so that we can't develop those skills or that we can't get forward? And it takes a lot of time, and it's not easy. You don't just say, oh, I documented and that's it, and now it's changed. It doesn't work like that at all. It takes practice, practice, practice makes perfect. And that communication style, when you approach it from that way, people start to respond to you differently. When you step into the room and you go, I'm trying to improve my this, and I've documented this, and I'm stressed out. Is anybody else feeling this? How is this work? How do you guys do it? They're gonna go, oh yeah, I'm feeling that too. And then I'm feeling that too. What are we gonna do? Well, we can't shift it on this project, but on the next one, and you might have to wait 6 months, 9 months, 12 months for the next project, but you've shifted it and you've started that and you've got the conversation, and that's how it changes. If you do nothing, I promise you it will not change, and a year from now on that next project, it will be the same. I guarantee that. That's very predictable results. And sometimes our fears or our trauma want those predictable results sometimes too. Some people love to complain. We've met those people, right? Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions? I'm going to be here. I have stickers. I have business cards. Yeah, what? Uh-huh.
How do you handle remorse, right? You say no, 2 hours down the line, maybe I should have said yes.
You handle remorse in the same way that you do anything. It's just with honesty and authenticity. I pick up the phone and go, oh, I should have said yes. I thought about it. Is that hard to do? To change your mind?
No, I change my mind way too often.
So it's the second guessing yourself.
Yes, like
It's
you said no, and then down the line you think,
FOMO sets in.
yeah, the FOMO sets in.
This FOMO sets in. Well, again, it's all about getting clear about your boundaries and what you want and your expectations. I want to sleep. So this is it. I've made my decision. I've decided. Remember, that was tip number 5, decide. And now that I've made that to sleep, well, I'm going to have to say no if I want to sleep. It feels uncomfortable probably the first 20 or 30 times. Get comfortable with the discomfort. That's what my yoga teacher always says. Get comfortable with the discomfort. Because while we're growing, that's where the growth happens. You could stay in your little bubble. Has anybody seen the circle where it's like your comfort zone, right? And everybody stays in the, and then over here is like where the growth happens is outside the comfort zone. You have to practice little by little by little. Even if it's just one phrase, practice one phrase setting boundaries. It takes so much time, and I would love to have a one-on-one. If you want, we could do like a Zoom call or something, because I have some other things to say that are different and not really. I'll talk to you. Yeah, it'll be good. So I think that if we decide and then stick to it, remember my friend Eaton. I prioritize sleep. I was like, psh, how did you just say that? You just live that way? Yep, I just live that way and I prioritize sleep. I was like, what's that like? He's like, it's great. I sleep. I'm like, but you're always grumpy. He's like, no, I'm just always grumpy anyway. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. So thank you very much, everybody. If anybody wants stickers, and if anybody would like to call,
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on
Of course.
what he said about, and especially with boundaries. So let's say you say no.
You say no. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then shit starts to go
And then shit goes all sideways.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then somebody comes and kind of, yeah, we need your help on this.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have already set the boundary to say no.
Mm-hmm.
What should you do then? Because then it's kind of, you feed your ego with being kind of like the rescue. If you say yes,
Yeah.
but if you say no to like your manager, then you will be a jerk basically. Because then you're kind of fucking us up because you're not helping us delivering this.
Well, it's also, you're on the team. It's also more of a I told you so kind of situation in that case. And like you said, ego, because you're coming in to save it. You know, I got a T-shirt actually that was just kind of funny that I just like to do because everybody knows how I am. So I got a T-shirt that just says, I told you 2 months ago. And so I like to wear that or to point at that every now and then. Is there a way that you can negotiate, which is hard for people pleasers, but is there a way that you can say, make it an emphatic yes? Yeah, I can help, but I'm gonna need to take Friday off. Yes, I can help, but I'm gonna need Thursday evening, afternoon off because I gotta go help with my family. It doesn't even matter because, but I can tell you, because I'm the behavioral woman, I can tell you that if you say because to somebody and give them a because, they will most likely say yes. Even if you're cutting in line at the airport. Hey, can I come in because? Sure. Even if you're in line, hey, can I come in because my coffee because of this? Yeah, sure, go ahead. That's a really good strategy for negotiating. So if you can negotiate and say, yes, I can do that if I can do this. I can do that if you give me something else. It helps with that. Now you're being compensated and you don't feel like they're just taking little bites out of you again. And sure, I get to save the day, but that's not really what it's about, right? Yeah, does that help? I think that helps. And it takes practice. The first time you do it is gonna be uncomfortable. Sit in it, marinate in the discomfort, squirm in it, I don't care. After about 20 times, it gets easier. Yeah, and then you try a different technique. Yeah. Awesome. Does anybody else have any questions? Thank you.